Have you ever thought about how football, beyond goals and victories, carries stories that shape society? Well, this is one of them. Imagine a club that stood up to Nazism, led by a Jewish president who dared to defy hatred and intolerance. Kurt Landauer wasn't just a football executive. He was a visionary who turned Bayern Munich into a symbol of resistance. While many yielded to the pressures of the regime, he stood firm, showing that football can be more than a sport. It can be a cry for freedom. But here's the intriguing part. For decades, Germany almost forgot his story. Why was someone so important left in the shadows? And how does Landauer's fight shape what we understand today about inclusion and diversity in football? If you think you know Bayern Munich, get ready to discover a side of the club that few have dared to explore. Even better, every detail of this story proves that courage and vision can change the world, and that football, at its core, is much bigger than rivalries. So are you ready to dive into this journey of resistance, sacrifice, and above all, transformation? The story begins now, with lessons that go far beyond the pitch and resonate in every corner of society. Historical context. In the 1930s, Germany was undergoing massive transformations. The rise of Nazism didn't just bring political changes, it restructured society, embedding exclusion and intolerance into every aspect of daily life, including sports. Football, a national passion, was used as a propaganda tool. Clubs aligned with the regime thrived, while those with progressive roots faced marginalization. Bayern Munich was one of those clubs. Under the presidency of Kurt Landauer, Bayern Munich quickly clashed with the Nazi regime. Landauer's leadership was progressive, emphasizing inclusion and modernization in a time of growing division. He believed football should unite people, regardless of religion or social class. Imagine, at the height of segregation, a president advocating for these values. But this stance came at a cost, as the regime soon turned its oppressive gaze toward Bayern Munich. As the Nazi influence grew, the effects on Bayern became evident. Clubs that aligned with the regime flourished, while Bayern was pushed aside. Football became a mirror of the oppressive policies shaping Germany. But the club, true to Landauer's vision, resisted. The challenges were immense, yet Bayern clung to its core values of inclusion during a time of growing darkness. Who was Kurt Landauer? Kurt Landauer wasn't just a club president. He was a visionary who saw football as a reflection of society. Born in 1884 in Munich, he grew up in a Jewish family and stood out early on for his leadership and organizational skills. Under his presidency, Bayern Munich began shaping itself into one of Germany's most influential clubs. He believed football should be accessible to everyone, a revolutionary idea in a society riddled with deep divisions. During his first tenure, Landauer introduced innovations that gave Bayern a unique identity. He invested in the professionalization of the club, something rare in a time when amateurism still dominated the sport. Imagine this: while many saw football as just a pastime, Landauer was treating it as a platform for social impact. It's no coincidence that Bayern won its first German championship under his leadership in 1932, a milestone that marked the start of the club's legendary journey. But Landauer wasn't just a dedicated manager. He was a symbol of courage. Even as anti-Semitism began to grow, he stood firm in his convictions. He believed in the transformative power of football and fought to preserve the club's values. But the challenges were only beginning. And soon his resilience would be put to the ultimate test. When Adolf Hitler rose to power in 1933, Kurt Landauer's life took a drastic turn. As a Jew and a prominent figure, he became a direct target of the Nazi regime, which wasted no time forcing him to resign from his position as president of Bayern Munich. The club he had built was now under the control of those aligned with the oppressive government. The persecution didn't stop there. In 1938, Landauer was arrested and sent to the Dachau concentration camp, one of the first facilities used by the Nazis to suppress their enemies. Imagine the horror of being torn from your home and placed in a place where survival was the exception, not the rule. Remarkably, Landauer survived, being released after 2 months. This brief moment of freedom allowed him to flee to Switzerland, where he lived in exile during the darkest years of World War II. From Switzerland, he watched from afar as the Germany he knew crumbled, and the Bayern Munich he loved was unrecognizable. Despite the distance and despair, Landauer held on to hope. His exile was a forced pause, but he knew his mission wasn't over. Every day in exile was preparation for the moment he could return and restore the spirit of the club he cherished. After the Second World War ended, Kurt Landauer returned to Germany in 1947, stepping into a nation and a club devastated by conflict. His return to Munich wasn't just about coming home, it was about reclaiming the legacy he had built. Welcomed back as Bayern's president, Landauer took on the enormous task of rebuilding both the club and its values. Imagine trying to restore something that had been shattered, brick by brick, while carrying the weight of such a turbulent history. The challenges were immense. Bayern Munich, like Germany, was in ruins. Landauer focused not only on rebuilding the team, but also on creating a space for reconciliation and hope. Under his leadership, the club became a symbol of perseverance and resilience. While immediate sporting success was limited, the foundations he rebuilt would guide the club for generations to come. Yet, Landauer faced a new kind of silence, the collective forgetting of his contributions. Post-war Germany was reluctant to confront its Nazi past, and Landauer's role as a Jewish leader was largely ignored. Still, he persisted, leaving behind a leadership model that continued to inspire. His journey wasn't just one of survival, but a testament to the enduring power of ideals, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Rediscovering Kurt Landauer. For decades, Kurt Landauer's story remained buried, overshadowed by Germany's post-war rebuilding and reluctance to address its past. It wasn't until the 2000s that fans and historians began uncovering his legacy. This collective awakening led to a renewed appreciation for Landauer's impact, spearheaded by groups like the Kurt Landauer Initiative, who unearthed historical records and shared his story with the world. This rediscovery wasn't just about honoring a name, it was about preserving history to prevent the mistakes of the past. Picture a group of passionate fans demanding recognition for a man who symbolized resilience and inclusion. In 2014, Bayern Munich honored him with a permanent memorial at the Allianz Arena, cementing his place in football history. Landauer's story has since transcended the pitch. Films, books, and cultural events have brought his life to the forefront, turning him into a symbol of resistance and diversity. His rediscovery shows that even the deepest silences can be broken if there's a will to confront the truth. And while his story has been revived, the lessons it carries are far from over. Religion, resistance, and inclusion. Kurt Landauer's life and leadership at Bayern Munich are deeply intertwined with themes of religion, resistance, and inclusion. As a Jewish figure during a time when anti-Semitism was state policy, Landauer embodied the fight against religious intolerance. His leadership not only defied the norms of his era, but also proved that football could be a space for unity, regardless of differences. Imagine the impact of a man who, in the face of persecution, stood firmly for respect and equality. This resistance wasn't just symbolic, it was practical. During his presidency, Landauer fostered an environment at Bayern where diversity was celebrated. Years later, the club's campaigns against discrimination reflect the values he championed. It's a clear message. Football isn't just a game, it's a platform to challenge prejudices and promote inclusivity. The legacy of inclusion Landauer left behind continues to inspire. Bayern Munich has become one of the most progressive clubs globally, embracing social causes and celebrating diversity. His story is a reminder that religion, far from being divisive, can be a bridge for solidarity. And the true power of this story lies in its relevance today, guiding future transformations in and beyond football. Social transformation. Kurt Landauer's connection to Bayern Munich is a powerful example of how football can drive social change. In a Germany scarred by extremism, the club, shaped by Landauer's influence, resisted intolerance and planted seeds of inclusion that would flourish for decades. More than just a president, Landauer was a catalyst, a man who knew that deep change begins with small acts, like welcoming those who were marginalized and promoting equality. The results of his vision are evident in Bayern's modern-day actions. The club isn't just a football powerhouse, it's a leader in social initiatives, from anti-racism campaigns to refugee support. This transformation didn't happen by accident. It was built on the foundations Landauer laid. When we look at Bayern today, we see what's possible when sport is used as a unifying force. Perhaps the greatest transformation has been outside the stadium. Landauer's story was revived not just to celebrate a heroic past, but to teach essential lessons for future generations. In a world still marked by division, Bayern's legacy of inclusion and resistance continues to inspire. It proves that football, despite its rivalries, can break barriers, rewrite narratives, and build a more just future. The story of Kurt Landauer and Bayern Munich teaches us that football, when lived in its purest form, can be one of the greatest tools for social transformation. But here's the real question. What are you doing to promote inclusion, respect, and equality in your daily life? Have you stopped to think about how your smallest actions can make a big difference? Whether in sports, work, or everyday life, it's time to draw inspiration from Landauer's example. Why not start today? Reflect on your own actions, learn from stories that shape the world, and find ways to build a fairer and more welcoming environment. And remember, just like Bayern rose from the ashes, you too can rewrite your story and inspire others to do the same. Now tell me, what inspired you most about this journey? Drop a comment below, share your thoughts, and let us know how you'll carry these lessons forward. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you can keep learning about incredible stories like this. Let's spread knowledge and inspiration together.